Have you ever noticed how there are certain people you can spend 10 minutes with, and somehow you walk away from that interaction feeling lighter and with a brighter outlook? Maybe y'all didn't solve any major issues, and they may not have given you some perfect advice, but you feel better because it's like something deep inside shifted. The bracing stopped and the performing stopped, and you feel more like yourself. Or there are those people who give us the opposite feeling. Maybe before an interaction with someone, you felt calm and grounded, but then you step into this environment where the person is tense, frustrated, or anxious, and before long, you start to feel more on edge yourself, like their frustration is contagious. Most of us have experienced both sides of this without ever really stopping to think about why. So let's get curious and talk about it. Hello, and welcome to Torches, Yoga and Mindfulness. I'm Lauren, and I'll be your coach. If you are curious about mindfulness, healing, and practical habits that actually work, you're in the right place because here we focus on simple but powerful practices grounded in ancient wisdom and modern science to care for both our mind and body. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. So, when we're overwhelmed, stressed, uncertain, or simply carrying more than usual, our instinct is often to retreat inward. We tell ourselves things like, I just need to figure this out, or I don't want to burden anyone. Or maybe we tell ourselves, I should be able to handle this on my own. And to be fair, there is value in learning how to regulate ourselves, in building self awareness, developing healthy coping skills, and learning how to sit with difficult emotions without immediately reacting to them. But sometimes, wellness and self help type of conversations can unintentionally leave us with the impression that every answer lives entirely inside of us. That if we just meditate enough, journal enough, think differently, or try harder, we will eventually arrive at a place where we don't need anyone else. But the reality is that human beings are deeply relational creatures, and our brains and nervous systems are constantly gathering information from the people around us. We were never designed to exist in isolation. We evolved in community, we learned in community, and we have survived in community. That's not weakness, it's biology, which means while we absolutely regulate internally, we can also regulate relationally. And that is where the idea of co regulation comes in. Researchers believe mirror neurons may play a role in this process. Mirror neurons are specialized cells in our brains that fire off both when we perform an action and when we watch someone else perform that same action, and vice versa. They essentially mirror the behavior of others in our own brains. And while scientists are still learning exactly how these systems work, the basic idea is that parts of our brains help us to recognize and reflect the experiences of others. In a sense, we are wired to notice one another. We pick up on facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, pace of movement, and emotional cues that often register before we're even consciously aware of them. Our nervous systems are continuously asking a quiet question of, am I safe here? And part of that answer comes from the people who are around us. Researchers have also observed something called biobehavioral synchrony. And this is just a fancy clinical phrase for something that's actually pretty familiar to us. When people share a close connection, they often begin to synchronize in subtle ways. Their breathing patterns may become more similar, their body language starts to mirror one another. Maybe you notice when you're like walking with your partner that your strides are matching. And even physiological rhythms like our heart rate or hormone levels can fall into rhythm with each other. Basically, the connection is deeply biological, and we can witness this phenomenon with close friends sitting together, a parent rocking a child, or longtime partners finishing one another's sentences. And researchers have also found that in close relationships, particularly long term partnerships, our nervous systems can influence one another through a process called autonomic co regulation. People who care about each other often become attuned to one another in ways we don't even realize. All this to say, Connection isn't just happening in our thoughts, it happens throughout our bodies. And when we spend time with people we trust, another part of our biology often joins the conversation. Our bodies can release oxytocin, it's a bonding hormone, and oxytocin helps support feelings of trust, connection, and social safety. It's one of the reasons a meaningful conversation, a warm embrace, or simply feeling understood can create such a noticeable shift in how we feel. Sometimes the change isn't our circumstances or life situation, it's the feeling that we don't have to carry those circumstances entirely alone. In other words, our bodies don't exist in isolation. Over time, the people we spend the most time with can affect how our nervous system responds to stress. A grounded presence can help bring more steadiness to a difficult moment, and a sense of safety can become something that is shared. And that sounds perfectly wonderful and all, but if this is true, so's the opposite. Stress can spread just like calm, which is why the people we surround ourselves with matters so much. And I don't mean in a way to deflect our own accountability or to say that other people are responsible for our well being or that we require another person to regulate us. But because part of being human is recognizing that we influence one another all the time, which leads us to a question worth reflecting on. Who are the people in your life that help you feel like there's less bracing, less performance, and you just feel more like yourself when you're with them? When you spend time with them, do you have a feeling of a little more groundedness, more capable, more at ease, and true to yourself? And on the other side of that awareness, are there relationships that consistently leave you feeling drained, guarded, or disconnected and more critical of yourself? And just like when we reflect on ourselves, the point isn't to make a judgment about these either other people. We're not deciding who's good or bad. We are just noticing so we can be more aware because, yes, awareness creates choice. The more clearly we can recognize how different relationships affect our energy, our presence, and our sense of self, the more intentionally we can decide where we invest our time and attention. And this isn't just something we are noticing and doing for ourselves. This is a two-way street. We aren't just recipients of co regulation, we are participating in it. We aren't just affected by the energy we receive, we also contribute to the energy we create. So I think it's worth asking ourselves from time to time, how do people feel after they spend time with me? Do they feel heard, welcomed, seen? Or do they feel like they can be themselves? If you're not certain about that, you can look at it from the perspective of setting a goal. Like instead of asking, instead ask, how do I want other people to feel after they spend time with me? Because if we've learned anything from the science we just talked about, it's that human beings are constantly influencing each other. And remember, this reflection and your awareness aren't a measure of worth or an opportunity to criticize. It's simply a point of awareness. The way we listen matters, the way we respond to people matters, and the way we make space for one another matters. More often than not, it's the smallest moments that leave the biggest impressions. Sometimes a small conversation you had with someone, even if you feel like you didn't say the right things, but by giving them space and compassion, that's where our connection can grow. Most of us can remember a conversation where someone made us feel deeply seen. We may not remember the exact words or even the topic, but you remember the feeling you walked away with. Maybe they were just fully present for you. For a few minutes, they weren't checking their phone or just waiting for their turn to talk. They probably didn't try to solve your problems, they were simply there. And sometimes that's one of the greatest gifts we can offer another human being. Throughout this month, we've talked about circulation, circulating breath, attention, energy, awareness, and intention. Because what we circulate, what we feed, grows. And connection is part of that circulation. And I think connection belongs in that conversation too. Every day we're circulating something, whether it's patience or impatience, presence or distraction, kindness or criticism, curiosity or assumptions, encouragement or indifference. We may not notice it, but those qualities have a way of rippling outward. We bring them in to become a part of the environments we create, and they become part of what others experience when they spend time with us. And with awareness, we get to choose which qualities we want to perpetuate. Just as the people around us can help us feel more grounded, more connected, and more like ourselves, we have opportunities to offer that experience to others as well. All right, friend, having said all of this, I do want to mention something else. If you've been around the channel, you may have caught some of my other videos where I've talked about dopamine and our brain's response. But if not, just as a crash course, dopamine is our reward hormone, a neurotransmitter. So our brain really likes to find tasks and projects it can finish in search of that dopamine reward. And the important note I want to make is to not let your relationships and connections turn into just another project, like something to master or optimize. That's not what this is about. Most of what I talk about on this channel is rooted in the idea that meaningful change isn't going to happen through big, dramatic life overhauls, but instead through small shifts in how we show up in the little moments. And connection is no different. Nurturing our relationships don't usually require grand gestures. They're nurtured through ordinary moments that we might otherwise overlook. That means we linger in a conversation for a few more minutes instead of just rushing off to the next thing. It's putting your phone down while someone is talking to you to give them your full attention instead of just what's left over. It's checking on someone who has been unusually quiet. Maybe it's finally sending a text that you've been thinking about to check in on like an old friend, someone you don't talk to all the time, but you keep talking yourself out of it because you don't have much to say. But let me tell you, sending a text with no topic of conversation in mind, just to say, hey, you crossed my mind and I hope you're doing well, is absolutely okay, and it is an absolute gift to receive. It's allowing yourself to be a little more honest when someone asks you how you're doing instead of the default good and you type of response we're conditioned to give. And that doesn't mean you have to turn it into a casual conversation into therapy and unload on them, but just offering something different, something real that allows another person to meet you where you actually are. Connection doesn't have to be complicated or perfect, and it doesn't have to become another self-improvement goal that we measure and evaluate. It can be just a simple willingness to participate, reach out, and stay present. A willingness to let people matter and to allow ourselves to matter to them in return. When we approach connection that way, the relationships that nourish us become a little stronger, the conversations become a little deeper, and the distance between us gets a little smaller. Not because we made some dramatic grand gesture, but through the accumulation of small moments of attention and care. All right, friend. As we move into July, I invite you to spend a few moments noticing the people, places, and relationships that nourish your sense of being fully yourself, because those are the ones worth tending and nurturing. I will leave those reflection questions we talked about in the description below so you can come back to them. In the meantime, stay present, stay kind to yourself, and I will see you soon.